Hello, today we're joined by Tracey Thornton from Reigate Grammar School Foundation. The foundation is leading an ambitious campaign, raising significant funds while also building a strong culture of philanthropy and connection across its network. Today we're going to explore what it really takes to build sustained, meaningful relationships and partnerships. And we've already started a really great conversation pre-podcast, but we're going to look to capture all of that and look at the realities of leading a small team whilst keeping those ambitions high and that clear mission. Tracey, hello and welcome to the Human Advantage podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Alessandro. Thank you so much for having me.
Tracey, for anyone that hasn't heard about the foundation, can you give us a brief overview of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for the Reigate Grammar School Foundation. We are a small team. We have the director of the RGS Foundation, Johnny Hilton, who is a former student there, so knows the school incredibly well, and has come back to now lead the foundation and on a very big mission as part of a campaign called Changing Lives, Building Futures. I work very closely with Johnny in relationship building and our fundraising and development roles. We have other team members, Annalise Gouge, who's also part of the fundraising team. We have Jodie Lazarus, who's part of our communication side and event side, magazine productions and reunions, lots of different events that she puts on. And Claire Adams, who works in our office, she won't like this, but she is the glue that keeps us all together and tells us exactly where we need to be. She's absolutely essential, but not externally facing. So not everyone necessarily will meet Claire face to face, but we are a very tight team. We need to be, because there's not many of us trying to do actually a huge number of different things. And I think it's actually worth sort of, sometimes you're always aware of what you haven't done, and just taking those pauses to reflect on how far you've come, because we've made a huge number of massive improvements to how we operate as a foundation team by understanding the skill set that we have in the team and who's best allocated to what roles, but also looking at what we're trying to do over a 10-year plan with this campaign, Changing Lives, Building Futures, which is all about bursary funding is a massive part of that. We want to go from 15% of students to 30% over a 10-year period, it's a tall ask, but it's doable. We believe we can do it through our community connections. We are a development office. We've got a large sports hall that we're about to break ground on in May, and that's a very exciting opportunity. But it's a very high achieving school. We need to make sure that the facilities match what we can do educationally. So that's a big part of what we do. We've got two other areas. One, which is broadening our impact through charity partnerships. Again, amplifying their voice through our community is really important. The school does a huge amount of charity work. It's a very philanthropically minded school. It was actually, it's worth saying at this point, it was actually, it started as a bequest from a wealthy landowner, Henry Smith, and it was established as, I don't like the phrase, but it was a school for poor boys. So it was actually all about social mobility at its core. And so the foundation's job is to stay true to that core principle, and we do it through all these different means. But a lesser known part, but quite a significant part of what we do, is our enrichment program. And that is a way we bring all the expertise from our community back into not just the school, but actually throughout the community. A Reigation isn't just a student or a former student. A Reigation is anyone who's connected to the school with aligned social values. So parents will automatically be considered to be Reigations. Staff are Reigations. Businesses that work with us are Reigations. And this inclusivity is absolutely crucial to building opportunity, collaboration. If someone wants to create opportunity with us, I want to hear from them. It's all good. It's all upside. I hope that gives you some overview of what we do.
It does. Thank you so much, Tracey. And I think, what you explain there about, you're a small, tight-knit team. Not all of you are kind of, for want of a better word, customer facing, but you've all got a role to play. And often there's not enough hands to go around to get all that jobs done. So kind of thinking about that, you know, you reference guiding principles help to filter decisions and keep the foundation focused. But in times of pressure, and there always are, or competing priorities, how do those principles actually shape the choices that you make?
I think that's a really good question. I'm a great believer in principles. I mean, the team will be sick and tired of me saying, "What's the principle behind this?" But I think your principles are a set of rules by which you operate, and it keeps you consistent. It keeps you focused. It allows you to not drift into those where it's so easy to get caught. You go down the rabbit warren of an idea, or worse still, someone else dictating how you should be spending your time according to their own priorities. And I think we're all guilty of doing that to other people, other teams within the school. It is a very busy school, and staff work incredibly hard in their own areas, and they're always, I have to say, incredibly good at offering to help where they can. And we would look to do the same, but it does sometimes deviate you from your true course. So I think you're maybe going off track here. You may have to remind me of the question, but I think those guiding principles are, you do need to keep in mind what they are. And we have sort of like weekly team meetings which help us to refocus on what are the priorities for this week for everybody, so we all know what everyone's working on. That structure in place for how the team operates is very helpful. It's not to say you can't go off piste. You know, sometimes something comes up and you go, okay, this wasn't in the plan. It's not part of this whole structure thing, but actually this is too good not to explore. And as long as you're having those open conversations, and I think flexibility is such a key characteristic that is, I talk to my children all the time about the importance of being able to be flexible, because you see it in so many different parts of your life as to why it's necessary. One of the things I always say when I'm meeting people and developing relationships is, you know, my job's to ask for things. I ask for things all the time, but we understand that everyone's circumstances are different and they change over time. So it's so much more important to have those relationships that allow you to have these open conversations, so you can deviate off plan. It may be that my circumstances are different. It may be that theirs are, maybe that together. The dynamic is it's live, and it's that which makes it exciting, makes it interesting. But yeah, I think that's you do need a structure. You do need to understand what your principles are, and that should guide you. But you should be flexible enough to deviate if that's appropriate. Does that answer the question?
It does, yeah, brilliantly. And you know, I think that whole having the focus and consistency, and Alessandro and I often talk about having that clarity, and it's nice to hear, you know, your team come together to refocus. What are the priorities today, this week, this month, this year? And it gives you that clarity on who's got what role and who's doing what priority, and you know, you stay focused then, don't you? So you know, really good to hear that you're working within that structure. And you're absolutely right, Tracey. I think it's being agile to change with the moving parts of needs, really. So yeah, brilliant, thank you for that. So I made a note here, Rhytanians, I think that's how you pronounce it. That's
Rygations.
Forgive me, Rygations. I hadn't heard of that before. So that's your local network, clearly one of the foundation's greatest assets. We talk a lot about assets. So in your experience, what have you learned about unlocking the potential of a community like that without over relying on the same voices or relationships?
It's absolutely crucial. I mean, I think you need to, it's open dialogue. It's, if you have developed a relationship and you can talk very frankly and always courteously. I mean, I would never do that. That underpins all relationships. I think you have to, you can be very direct, you can be really quite blunt, as long as you're courteous. It does help. You know, I'm very respectful of people's time. I understand when I'm talking to them, it's not about their work and their job, and it's not what they need to do in order to, you know, bring home the goods and all of that stuff. So it's always secondary to what their needs are. And and therefore I'm appealing to goodwill a lot of the time. So it's really important that I allow them the space to not meet with me, not do what I want them to do, because the time might be right. So I think it's really important to be courteous, and I think it allows you to build all the different relationships over time. We're very lucky in the Rogation community because we're a school. We automatically have a community that has some connection to us. So it's not cold calling like some charities going out to a community they've never had any contact with. That's quite tough. We don't have that. However, because it's closed, or for a large part it's closed, you do potentially fall into that trap where you've built these lovely relationships. So they're the obvious ones to keep going to and asking, but you can't. Everyone's got a capacity. And I think the thing is that having a broad menu of different ways that you can engage with what we do. And it's lovely having our enrichment program, because those are non-financial paths to support. And there'll be some people in the community really supportive of what we're doing, wanting to get involved. Maybe the financial route isn't something they can do, or for whatever reason that's not right for them, but they could get involved. They could be available to take a call from a student and tell them about their career path. It's having all these different ways that people can get involved. Financial contributions from £1 a month, as opposed to, it doesn't have to be at these vast sums that some people can do, sure, but it's a very small minority. But they will only give if other people are engaging. So we need to have this breadth. We need to have huge opportunity to engage in a way that's right for them. We have a phrase through this new campaign called Find Your Fit. And the whole concept of Find Your Fit is you decide, this is all the way that we would love for you to consider supporting what we do. And it's really lots and lots of different opportunities. But you decide what's right for you in this moment, at this time. And it can change because it's fluid. And all of a sudden it's opened up the opportunity for so many more people to involve themselves in what we do and feel very comfortable that they are in their place. They have a right to be there, because of course they do. We're the foundation for everyone. But if people don't feel it, I think not going to do it. I was just going to go actually answer the point that you were saying about asking too much. I think you always have to be sensible, but if you create the relationship so that they know that your job is to ask for stuff, and actually you've established that there's always an easy and exit for them to take should they want to. It's not about duress, it's not about embarrassing anybody, it's about saying, these are the things we're trying to do. You came to mind because of XYZ. Would you like to be involved in this? They're quite comfortable saying, no, if it's not right. So I don't think you fall into the trap of over asking quite the same way as if you're not actually providing anything for them to do. And the community, the wonderful thing about the Rogation community is because it's not just about the students when they're in school, it's about support. It's support for all Rogations throughout their lifelong journey. This is once a Rogation, always a Rogation, and we want to keep that level of support and nurturing. And if someone's in a mid-level career and they want to change completely, is there someone in the Rogation community they can talk to? We say absolutely, we'll put them in touch. Or if someone's traveling, they're going to set up home abroad somewhere. Do we know any Rogation families there? We're like, absolutely, we can put you in touch. So it doesn't have to be business, it could be sort of personal circumstance, but it's a really valuable community. We can do this. We want people to ask us to build these connections, because it might not be a connection that directly impacts us in the campaign that we're doing in terms of any financial reward or anything on that score. But it could be that over time, another connections are made, and the value of the community is so felt and so believed that later down the line, there's a connection that does help. So it's always worth doing. I always say the right people come to the surface at the right time for the right thing. If you've got the engagement, if you've got the trust.
I think that whole point around, you said you've got an audience, you've got a captured audience because they understand who you are, what you do. I think there's nothing worse when a lot of organisations think they've got to go out cold calling. There's no authenticity around that, is there? And I think, you've built a network, which is your asset. And I think that's really important, and probably quite nicely goes on to our next question, Tracey, which is, from experience then, what tends to be those early signals or those signs to think it's going to be a partnership that would last?
It's funny, I think when I first started working in the charity sector, I don't know why I perhaps felt it might be different to what I'd done previously. And of course, you quite quickly realise that this is exactly the same. I've got these skills already, and I just need to sort of apply them in the same way as I always have. And it is, I think don't be afraid of what the outcome might be for a start, because I think if you're concerned about the outcome, you're automatically going, you're stopping yourself from developing the authentic relationship organically, because you're fixated on a particular outcome. You should know where you're wanting the relationship ideally to go with the information that you've managed to gather in advance of it. I think that's sensible because it helps direct conversation. But I feel very relaxed when I meet people for the first time, because it's fact finding. They need to know whether or not I'm someone they want to work with. I mean, this is a two-way process, right? And I think actually the more sort of relaxed you are, the more that you're open to seeing, are there any connections here? I have to like the person in front of me, and that's really important. They have to like me. That's also really important. I think if you like each other, you're looking to see all the different ways that you can maybe support each other. You can't kid yourself that there are ways to do it if they don't exist. I mean, that you can't. But what you can do is be open to finding all those different ways of just nudging that relationship on a bit. And it could be that the first real interaction you have is they come to an event. There's no more than that. There's no promise of anything at the end of it. But actually they meet other people and they see the benefit to come to another event, and it can be very slow. I am all about letting the relationship develop at the pace that is right, and not feeling under pressure to push it along, because I think that's really dangerous. I think it becomes transactional really very quickly, or at least at some point it will feel like that, and you lose the authenticity in that moment. So I wouldn't want to do that. Some relationships you learn very, very quickly that there's real energy from both sides to explore it, and that's great. And others just take a bit more time, and that's okay too. That's okay too.
I think, I really like your whole, let it happen as it happens, build it organically. And most definitely it is a two-way partnership. You've both got to benefit from that partnership, relationship, whatever it might be. And you make me resonate really, or remind me of a time that I actually got the pleasure of working with Anita Roddick, the founder of The Body Shop. She'd come bounding into one of our workshops, and she said, like you said, Tracey, don't be afraid of outcome. Anita used to say to us, don't be afraid of a no, because for every no you get, you're closer to a yes. So it's born out of let it happen naturally. Make some encouragements, be getting to know that partner, what are their needs, what are their challenges, what solutions can you bring to the table? So absolutely, it's a two-way process.
I think the danger is as well that if you are too focused on needing to get a particular outcome, you'll miss the hidden signals. This is something Alessandro touched on before we went live, that you need to be able to read it's the body language, it's the aunt said that help you to really understand the person in front of you. I love AI. I think it's really, as it is at the moment, and I know all the horror stories, and I'm not pretending that there's not a bigger issue at hand here, but as it stands at the moment, AI I find incredibly useful. With a small team, if you can move some of the grunt work to a tool beside you that just sits on your desk, I think it's an absolute gift. But the main reason I like AI is it frees me up to be human and to tap into all that human energy, so that I'm sat across with somebody else and we are connecting on a human level. The creation comes from the human beings, not from the AI. And I think when you sort of see it as an ally to you, I think embracing that, when AI is around, we need to embrace it in the way that it will be helpful to us, but allows us to divert our energies to something that we're really going to benefit from. I think it's rewarding when you can bring that creativity back in.
I'm very curious, like Tracey, because we talk about like the breadth in terms of support, and like new connections is one of the the strongest ways to support your like a mission. Sometimes like maybe tangible benefits, maybe donations, are easier to explain compared to intangible benefits. Let's take the example of maybe future wealth or community growth. So when people focus mainly on bursaries, which is much more tangible, what part of the bigger picture do you feel is quietly being missed? Because something tangible and intangible are two different things.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would say about our community, we're incredibly lucky that it is a very caring, nurturing community, whether or not it's because it's a community born from a school, which tend to be very nurturing places. Perhaps that is it. I think we have good people wanting to do good things, and they see us as a vehicle to do that. I think with our bursary program, it's an interesting thing. I think bursaries are schools that have good bursary programs do better in terms of the outcome for the children in it, because they are incredibly enriching environments where you have a vibrant bursary program. It's the right thing to do to give access and optimal education opportunity to kids who wouldn't otherwise be able to have that access. So I don't think there are many people who would argue against that it's a good thing. Social mobility is a good thing. And I think a lot of what we do is, and this is the thing I think that's most difficult actually to convey, is the impact of what they do is more than the one child that is being supported. It's the overall impact on society as that child goes through society. You know, they earn more money, therefore pay more taxes. They are less likely to be a drain on sort of resources that the supply. And actually, the overall impact is statistically something like 10 to 16 times GDP. I nearly said GDPR, not that GDP. Which, you know, you start to think, goodness, that is impactful, but it's difficult to convey that at the time when you're talking about a child sort of in school. We just know that over time, social mobility is a good thing. And if we get it right in our school, we have an incredibly influential headmaster who within the education sector. And sharing ideas and best practice. One of the IDP is an organisation that supports development officers in schools. And both Johnny and I have contributed, and Sean Fenton, our headmaster, to their programmes so that we share best practice. That's all impact that helps other schools to do things within their own communities. It's very difficult to convey that in a nutshell. We know, so I sleep very well at night because I know that what I'm doing is a good thing, and I believe wholeheartedly in education as the silver bullet to everything. So I feel very comfortable in working in the education sector, but people understanding impact and the breadth of impact is one of the difficulties that I think that we have doing what we do. It's a journey. One of the things that we want to do this year is really, we demonstrate impact and we communicate impact in lots of different ways. But what we want to do this year is be very focused on what that actually looks like, so the community can come away and go, I really do understand. Because if they understand their impact, what great motivation for participating in what we do. If they don't, well, we've done something wrong. We're missing something.
So thinking about, for example, now maybe business conversation specifically.
Yeah.
If the wider impact on families and communities were easier to express in business language, what do you think would a change in those conversations?
So I have a business background,
yeah.
So I do like the corporate partnership element of what we do. We've had corporate partnerships over quite a long period of time, but without any underlying structure, key structure. There has been structure in that we've always made sure that we have been consistent in what we offer, so that from a stewardship point of view, people are getting treated fairly. That's obviously always going to be incredibly important, but we haven't really publicised it not terribly effectively. So we've had a few corporate partners over the years that have done different things, sponsorship of events, or supported in various ways, and it's been brilliant. But we've wanted to, and I think the reason it's probably been like that is just a lack of resource we don't have a corporate partnership individual that has that as their sole focus. We're just not resourced to do that. But it became increasingly obvious, I think, that the benefit to our community, yes, we have this wonderful close community, and it touches on the point that you made, Karen, about not over asking. VAT on school fees is something that we're very conscious of. We don't want to over ask any part of our community. We really don't. And what we hadn't done is necessarily reached out more formally into the corporate space. And we have lots of local businesses. They don't have to be particularly big to want to be involved in some way. And we realised that over time, a lot of these businesses would support a prize draw that we do with gifts. That's wonderful. Or some would be supporting bursary students, which is amazing. It's phenomenal. There would be others that would be happy to support in some way. Maybe it's work experience programs. It almost doesn't. Again, it doesn't matter. It's find your fit. But if they don't know about us, if they don't know that this is even an option. So one of the things that I did towards the end of last year was formalise the process, make it much more visible, so that people can start to see what might resonate with them, the right sort of balance of ways of working with us. And it started a huge number of conversations. What does
visibility look like, Tracey?
So we have a page on the website, which was sort of the first thing. We at least get it on there. But there's a published rate card that's part of that, so they can really. We're being very transparent, because that's really important. Well, I don't want one business down one end of the high street to speak to one down the other end and realise that they're on a different deal. I mean, that would sit very ill with me, so I wouldn't do it to anybody else. So that was really important, and we never have. But it's important to be visible about that. We've looked to. We are sort of doing outreach in terms of networking groups. So I'm going into various networking groups in the local area, so that I understand the business in the local area better than I currently do. That's important. That's about me doing my due diligence on the companies that are there, what's important to them. Now, there's no substitute for being face-to-face with the business owner and understanding directly from them, of course not. But I think, again, it's about courtesy and respect for their time. I wouldn't walk into a business and expect them to speak to me if I haven't done my research on them as best I can with the information available. I've actually got a meeting this week with a couple of people from the Reigate Business Guild, which is a local community within Reigate, all to do with the businesses. So I'm really interested in finding more about our business community. Some of them will have had children go through the school. They'll be connected in a way that I haven't even appreciated already. I believe so strongly that the more people collaborate, I think we've always said Reigations like to support Reigations, but there's no reason that all these businesses within the Reigate community could be Reigations if they wanted to be, if they felt that their social values aligned with our own. We are very, very open to supporting businesses. It's important. We want a thriving community in Reigate. We want businesses to be able to employ Reigations as they embark on their careers, develop their careers. And what a wonderful picture to think that schools work together so closely with their local business communities, and indeed with other schools in the area, to create opportunities for all. I think it's a noble ambition to have, and I think we are on that path to do that, and I think that's a good thing.
So when you look at, for example, now we mentioned about the website, the outreach are some of the marketing activities and assets that you want to leverage. So when you look at your current channels and marketing materials, where does the message seems to lose clarity or impact first? What are like the marketing activities or assets that you currently have, but you are not fully leveraging to obtain your outcomes?
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we do use email probably more than I would like to at one level, because I feel as though, if I put my parent hat on for a minute, any parent who has children in school at the moment will probably be suffering from email overload, because I think there are so many communications that you receive just because you've got kids of a certain age. And And I think the danger is, if you're time poor, and who isn't time poor? We're all time poor. At the end of the evening, you're tired, but you've got to keep up on the messages. And an email lands that is about whether or not hockey's been cancelled and you need to pick your kid up at a different time and different location, as opposed to an email about corporate partnership program from the RGS Foundation. If we're competing with those sorts of emails, and one's going to get read and one's not, well, ours is the one that wouldn't get read in that situation. So I don't like relying over heavily on email, because I think it's an overused medium. So one of the things, this is very opposite, you're asking this question right now. So one of the things I was doing actually just at the end of last week, we're re-looking at our sort of whole marketing plan for the whole year. And we all everyone in the team sort of feeds into that plan. And I was looking at what should be the 12 touch points for each aspect of what we do. So let's just focus on the corporate partnership aspect. And it definitely shouldn't all be through email, but maybe just a postcard now and again, just as a very easy, very simple, incredibly easy to digest piece of marketing that just drops through the letterbox and that people can, or I put through the businesses down the high street even. It almost doesn't matter. Is that a good touch point? Well, maybe not just by itself, but across the year, if we have our e-irrigation, which is our quarterly magazine that goes out and drops through, and it's in that, and then it's in the Irrigation magazine, which is a physical publication just once a year, but by and large it's a kind of coffee table publication that just sits there, and it's in that, and they can find it hopefully over the time, maybe not even in that first year, but by the end of the second year, when you've had 24 touch points, they probably now know what we do. So I think it is that sort of future planning of how many times, through what different media do we need to do all these things in order for to raise the awareness to a level that they can't say they haven't heard about it. They may not have taken action yet, but it doesn't stop me then reaching out based on information that I've gathered from. People will say, "Oh, have you spoken to so-and-so?" And that's a lovely way to then reach out to somebody, because in a sense they've kind of done your job for them. You've probably spoken to them about you. So it's not a cold call, actually. It's just leveraging on the back of somebody else's conversation. And if they've had all those touch points before, they know why you're reaching out, and actually they're probably quite receptive to it. That tends to be how it seems to be working at the moment. I'd say we're still quite early days on this program, though, so it'd be interesting in a year's time. If you invite me back in a year's time, I'll tell you how it's gone. But it's to see how that's developed. I'm kind of in a bit of sort of just wait and see, because we're trying these things. We think we're trying them on the basis of a good understanding of what we're trying to achieve and the marketplace that we're operating in. But until you've actually tried it, you don't quite know what result you're going to get.
Tracey, you sound like a very passionate, very dedicated leader of this, sounds like an ambitious campaign, but I don't doubt that you won't get there with you at the helm there, and you've clearly got a supportive team. We've touched on capacity, the need for communication, kind of that alignment for growth and to hit that ambitious campaign. What do you think is the hardest part of sustaining or keeping the sustained momentum to get there? Is there any messages, any takeaways that you sat back and reflected, or any advice for somebody else that might be listening today?
Well, the first thing I should say is I'm not at the helm of the campaign. That's very much Johnny Hilton, and he's been absolutely brilliant. When I first took on the job, one of I didn't have much information, apart from what you read on the website. And I met with Johnny, and I thought, I can work with you. Yeah, I like you. You're a good guy. And I think what I was actually seeing is someone who, yes, he understood his role and what his direction was, but I think and he understood the school because he'd been through it. He's very well regarded in our community, and it's because he's a decent human being and doing a really good job. So it's easy to get behind someone. Again, it comes down to, if you like them, it's easy to follow someone that you feel are doing, have the right sort of ethics and values. But actually, I think you can extend that to every member of the team as well. I think the team they're good people working incredibly hard to do what they believe is the right thing. And I think that carries a level of passion anyway. And so it's sort of we don't need to work at that. That's a given. That's there. We have a really supportive governing body. Our headmaster, Sean Fenton, he and Johnny go out on a number of sort of international trips in order to drum up support for the things that we do. They're going to be going to New York in May for a gala dinner, because we have a lot of regations across America that will be coming together for that, which is absolutely lovely. It's easy to be passionate about something when you are in such a supportive community. I think we're very lucky. I think we do help engage people in a way and continue those relationships as well. But it's chicken and egg. What came first? I don't really know. I think regations are good people. I really do.
Great. I think before we conclude, what I really learned from from you, Tracey, which I think like both of us, Karen and I, fully share, is to have a structure, but also be adaptable.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a structure and you are not adaptable, it's quite difficult not to drift, as you mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation. At the same time, heavily rely on regation, rather than just having maybe an external support, like maybe small businesses or corporation, that they can also share different resources, which is not just monetary, but also experiences, all the different things that complement the future of the Renegade, is really, 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 really important. So if someone wants to stay in contact with you, they want to contact you, they want to contribute, how they can do so?
Very easily. I mean, on our website, every available opportunity, we will, even on our corporate partnerships page, on every other page, there are links to how they can contact the foundation. I think because, again, there's a lot of word of mouth in our community, over time there will be people say, oh, that's Tracey you need to speak to, or that's Johnny you need to speak to about that. They could speak to anyone in the team and it would get to the right person, because we're such a small team. It's really very easy. Over time, as we sort of build connections with people, if they come to an event, they would then be invited directly. And I think our event emails are quite, they're received probably differently to sort of information sort of only emails, which we don't do a massive amount of, because again, we don't want to bombard people with that kind of thing. They're already busy, and I don't think it's the most effective. But inviting people to events is, if they're available, I think they're quite keen to come along. We had an event in London not a couple of weeks ago, and it was incredibly well attended. 100 regations. Thank goodness it was only 100, because I don't think we could have squeezed in 101. It was quite tight, but it was an incredibly fun evening. And one of the things we look to do is to make it so inclusive and so relaxed that you may be there because you've got an interest in a sort of meeting someone over a business connection, and that's great. This place is for you. You could be there because you're meeting people, that are friends that you haven't seen for ages, and it's basically just a reunion. But that's great. You're going to have a good time there too. And it cross of ages, people from different parts of the community. They're always really good events. That sort of cross section, because you're all connected because of the relationship with RGS. So again, it's a really lovely community to be part of. But over time, I think people get to know us as a team. We're very approachable. Often after every event, there's always opportunities that have come from that event. People will be messaging Johnny, or have you spoken to so and so, and they'll make maybe a direct connection. So it's not necessarily us waiting for people to reach out to us. We will go out to reach out to them as well. It kind of works both ways. It's you're always going to have some people say, oh, I didn't see that, but it's not because we're not trying.
Brilliant. So thank you so much for joining us, sharing your experience, your expertise from both a business and a charity, because we felt you also have a very strong foundation experience from a business point of view. And hope that everyone that is going to listen the episode, they can support you, they can reach you to support your mission.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Alessandro.
Tracey.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate the time today.